Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe, and this continues our, news week saga. I don't know. We've been doing a lot of news videos lately. Thankfully, yesterday we got the Warcraft video out there at the time of this video's publication. The thing is, it's just there's a lot of news that's coming out, and I figured should be good to update people on all this before I leave on a quick trip. So in that regard, I might not be with internet for a little bit, or at least I'd have limited in internet for a few days. So might as well get these out, and don't worry, schedule out some good lore videos for next week. That way there's a full, or character discussion videos. That's why there's a full week of none of this news stuff. Get this all out of the way. But anyways, here's the picture, which I'm not sure about Sturm. I'm not sure about Raceland in this picture. She looks good enough. The background looks great. So, it's by Philip Ehrlich. He's pretty good as far as artists go. I believe he's Swiss. And he's got a great channel. Do check it out. Dragonlance goes back in time with an excerpt from Dragons of Fate, new novel. Right, this whole time travel thing. Sorry, I hate time travel outside the Legends trilogy. It's just, so cringe. This is not a good part of Dragonlance history. It's only ever really been done well once. Legends, which itself is a classic trilogy of Dragonlance. The second book is explosive. It's not the tame second act by any stretch of the imagination. Well, let's hope it's equal to the task, because Winter Night was explosive and was great. It wasn't a tame second act, as the saying goes. Actually, I think Winter Night was better in almost every way than Autumn Twilight. The only thing is, Tanis's team were basically part of the way for the story just chucked out. They didn't have much of a plot going on. Other than Tika taking off her clothes. That was the plot for Tanis's team. And Raceland learning to use the Dragon Orb. You could have had some action set pieces, but they didn't. That's the only flaw of Winter Night. But still a solid novel. Sturm's team is awesome. And at the first little stretch of the journey, of course, Winter Night's Tanis team was pretty good. Anyways, authors Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman, co-authors of the Dragonlance Dungeons and Dragons novels, are back with a powerful new book and an exclusive excerpt for Polygon readers. Dragons of Fate, the sequel to 2022's Dragons of Deceit. Yeah, this book was at best mediocre, and on looking back on it, there was stuff I still like in it, but not a very good novel overall. It was, like I said, at best mediocre, which there are worse things to be, I guess. Continues the story of main character Destina Rosethorn. I still like this surname, Rosethorn. At the same time, it literally turns back the clock on the world of Krynn, placing fan favorite characters Raceland Magier and Sturm Brightblade once again in the center of the action. Yeah, except why not put them in the main era? The second book is explosive, Hickman told Polygon in a recent interview. It's not the tame second act by any stretch of the imagination. It's an explosive book with explosive events. I'm very excited for people to take this part of the journey with us. Margaret and I have a tendency to do very shattering second books, and this one feels like it follows that tradition. Well, that's good. In Dragons of Deceit, Destina uses powerful magic to travel back in time with the hope of saving her kingdom in the land of Solamnia. Fortunately, those actions pull her and members of the iconic Dragonlance companions physically back in time. Suddenly, the adventuring party finds themselves in the company of Magius and Huma Dragonbane, two legendary figures from Prince Pass. Yeah, I wish they didn't. I wish they wouldn't do that. You don't touch the Legend of Huma. It was perfect. There's no need to touch it. I think we all have a vision of our heroes. We have a tendency to carve them in marble and make them perfect icons in our mind. I think that for us having an opportunity to view Huma, to view Magius as people, as flawed individuals. I don't like the sound of that. No, like, it's not that they're perfect, but they had one book which had a beginning, middle, and end. We don't need more stuff about them. Maybe a graphic novel could have expanded on them in some ways, but that's it. You don't need to have a trilogy with them, especially time travel involved with them. A time travel story actually kind of weakens the story here, as time travel always does in almost every story it's involved in, outside of maybe Flash. I guess Doctor Who fans like Doctor Who. I don't understand Doctor Who, so yeah. I'm just not a fan of time travel. And I think, well, I guess it didn't weaken Legends. Legends pulled it off really well. And I think that for us having an opportunity to, I already read that, and to get past the marble statues with them has been part of the journey of the book itself. So you're going to try to make Huma and Magius more flawed. You messed up Magius in book 1. That was a terrible approach where you give Huma a sister and make Magius... His entire motivation being basically that, well, he didn't get to marry her, which, no, just... Their entire motivation was one of brotherhood. Why not? Well, Huma wants to do the right thing. Magius is scared of dying. But in the end, their brotherhood, their fraternal bond, saves Magius' soul and helps save the world. Can it get any more beautiful than that? You don't need to add more motivations. You don't need Batman to have wanted to invent a new flavor of ice cream and wanted to become a disco dancer, as AVGN said. One motivation is enough. At most, maybe two. Raceland and Sturm in particular have to struggle with this, Weis said, because Huma has always been Sturm's hero and Magius is Raceland's. When it comes to Magius and Raceland doesn't really have heroes. Especially after what happened in the test. He doesn't have heroes anymore. He might admire Magius' talent with magic, but he doesn't look up to him. Raceland loves the art and admires the art. Nothing else. And the only reason I say nothing else is that that's a core component of his character, his cynicism, his pessimism, his lack of faith in people. This is what leads him down a doomed path. And now that they've met them, they have to deal with this. Hickman said that he and Weis have tried to remain faithful to their original characters. Okay. Even when placing them within this new and unusual timeline. Sturm is still Sturm, and Raceland is still Raceland. Yeah, Sturm's kind of gonna hate on Raceland no matter what. And crack the occasional dry joke. And make the occasional bitter comment. I love Sturm. Even though they're confronting this real dissonance within them, as they're viewing their heroes. So basically, Huma and Magius are not going to live up to, well, the standard. They're going to find a way to, I don't know, like, this doesn't sound very great. Just, oh well. Maybe I'm wrong. So, sorry, it's just I'm so used to bad news these days, on a personal level and on a looking at Rings of Power, looking at even Zelda. I find that it's nothing but bad news. But on the other hand, at least there's some great news for Conan, and I guess some good news for House of the Dragon. So we'll see. Raceland has always been so analytical and so distant anyway. Yeah, Hickman continued, always trying to remove himself and observe everything from the outside. Yeah, that is a a strength and a weakness of his. That I think we can see the same viewpoint in him as he's trying to grapple with these differences, okay? His challenge is to grapple with the reality that is rather than his expectations. It provides us, as readers, making this journey with him. Okay, here's the excerpt. Brought the words to a spell to mind, one he had memorized centuries ago, and took a pinch of bat guano, a simple spell. As a novice mage, once again he lacked the magical skill to cast any spells. Well, I thought he had the memories or some inklings of his black robe days. Oh well, and I think I had the power to challenge the gods, he thought with grim irony. What? Oh well. So he doesn't have access to his full power. He's got to make do with smaller level of powers. They heard the sound of feet rushing through the forest, undergrowth, and a shrill voice singing. Your one true love's a sailing ship that anchors at our pier. We lift her sails, we man her decks, we scrub her portholes clear. Okay, that's actually kind of funny. Raistlin let the words to spell tassel off. I found Sturm, Tas announced when he saw them. He and Huma and some other men are coming to help the soldier. And look who came with me. Raistlin, this is Magus. And see what he has with him? He has your staff. Magus came into view, walking slightly behind Tas. Now, Magus is a jokester. He rarely ever takes anything seriously, at least in the original novel. But there's a grimness to him, a fear. And this is the nature of his character. It's well recorded in universe as well. The mage was a typical Salamnik in appearance, with hair the color of the ripening wheat and blue eyes. I like this wording. He had high cheekbones, a determined jaw, a sardonic smile, and a mocking glint in his eyes. He wore red robes, since war wizards were not permitted to wear the white robes that betokened peace, and a silver ring on his left hand. Eyeing the ring, Raistlin wondered if it was magical. Now, actually, Magus tends to wear rather rich robes, but not red ones. He's kind of outside the order, because he stepped out from it, having been I believe, a red robe once, then turned to black robes, and before he dies, he turns into a white robe. He knew from history that Magus was now in his 30s, as was his friend Huma. That meant that Raistlin was the younger of the two, with far less knowledge and experience at this time in his life. To an extent, Raistlin's about 30 when he passes, and he's got a lot of experience, and I think a lot of the memories of Feast on Dantalus, so he's actually kind of centuries old, in a way. Magus walked slowly, leaning on his staff as though exhausted, which might be true, for he had been casting spells that fatigued the mind and the body and drained the mind. But Raistlin was not fooled. He had used the same deception himself, leaning heavily on his staff to lull an enemy into complacency by feigning weakness. With one word of magic, Magus could turn that staff into a deadly weapon. Raistlin could not fault the mage for taking precautions, for he was now encountering strangers who had been skulking about in the woods during a time of war. But as his gaze swept over the group, Raistlin saw he appeared to be more intrigued than afraid. Okay, I'll bring help for that soldier who got hurt. Tas was saying, Magus wanted to come ahead to meet everyone. This is Lady Destina Rosethorn. Destina did not look like a noble lady, and her clothes were covered with leaves and stained with blood, and her black hair had come unbound and tumbled down around her shoulders. But she shook out her skirt, brushed off the leaves, and greeted Magus with the poise she would have used to welcome a guest to her. No, I'm sorry. She'd probably be a little shocked and whatnot, but, or at least, I don't know about, well, sorry if I'm so cynical. Thank you for coming to help us, sir. This man was oh, yeah, okay. Actually, this makes sense. She's training war and whatnot. A goblin's and is wounded. Magus inclined his head in acknowledgement. My friend is bringing them from the village with a litter. Okay. Actually, Magus might crack a bad joke there. An insensitive one, to be quite honest. He was never very polite in the original novel, so his The voice was confident, self-assured, taking command of the situation. Wary, but not fearful. His blue eyes flicked past, destined to fix on Raceland. This is my wizard friend, Raceland Magier. I was telling mages about you, Raceland. How you cough up blood and you have golden skin and hourglass eyes. Mages regarded Raceland with a cool, appraising look. Golden skin, pupils the shape of hourglass. Your hair prematurely white. The test, said Raceland by way of explanation. Mage's eyes grew shadowed. He nodded in understanding and said nothing more. Nah, he'd mock Raceland. Like, Magus was irreverent. Actually, I think that's the best word to describe him. He's irreverent. So, he just has no respect for people because he doesn't care, at least at the beginning. Well, he's got this armor of sarcasm and irreverence because he's deep down scared. And like Raceland and all other mages, he would be loath to reveal what had happened to him. Well, yeah, that's true. Observed his fellow mage with interest and some reluctance. No, Raceland would not have reluctance. He observes everyone with interests. And somewhat greed in some ways. He's actually a bit of a shadow image to Magius. And I say a shadow because Raceland's much more a shadow archetype and a darker character, a gloomier one, by his very nature. Huma was celebrated as a hero in story and song, but none of the heroic tales mentioned Magius, probably because Salamnics distrusted magic, and they chose to ignore that their hero had been friends with a wizard. Yeah, but Raceland had heard stories of Magius all his life, for wizards honored him to this day and kept his memory alive. Yeah, Raceland knew the old adage that warned against meeting your heroes, for they can never measure up to your expectations and were certain to disappoint. Raceland doesn't have heroes. Not since Antimides. Antimides' rejection of him had destroyed Raceland's idealism. It's actually one of the most tragic parts of the character. That part of the story is just beyond tragic. It'd actually be a little interesting what might have happened had Raceland not been rejected like that, and Antimides had agreed to take him on as his apprentice and journey with him for the next 4 or 5 years. I actually think maybe Raceland would have drifted towards the white robes in that case, rather than the black robes. If only because Antimides truly brought out the best in Raceland. Maybe they should have written that instead, where Destina kind of inadvertently screws up the history in that regard. And then you could depict Raceland's adventures in that alternative timeline there. That'd almost be more interesting. Although, like, how would you write him as a white robe? What's interesting about Raceland is that he's a red robe who goes black robe. So, I don't know. He wondered if that would be the case with Magius and held himself aloof. Greetings, brother. They don't address each other as brother, ever. Period. But at least not to my knowledge. But that said, Magius certainly does not address fellow mages as brother. He's out of the order. I have long thought I was the only wizard in Salamnia. That's dumb. He's not. There are plenty of wizards out there. He's just... Yeah, I don't like this statement. I am pleased, albeit astonished to meet another. No, he wouldn't be. Because he's a renegade. He's got a lot to lose. I'm not sure well, he is curious. He'd probably want to go meet Raceland. So here, edit this sentence, this piece of dialogue. It's not good. It's inconsistent. Raceland is the friend I was telling you about, the one who owns your staff. And I think that all this time I've been laboring under the misconception that I own my staff. Okay, that's Magius, yeah. Magius said, his lips twitching in amusement. The Kender has your staff confused with an old walking staff of mine. Raceland said. I am not confused, Tass said, offended. I know it's the same staff, because your staff had a dragon claw holding a crystal ball on top, just like this one. I can prove it. He turned to Magius. Does the crystal ball on your staff light up when you say shellac? Because Raceland's staff used to do that. Magius had been amused before, but he was not amused now. The magic word used to light the crystal on the staff was shellac, not shellac. But the two were close enough to raise questions. What else do you know about my staff, Master Burrfoot? He just spoke to the Kender, but he was watching Raceland. Call me Tass. Everyone does. Raceland said it was the staff of Magius, and that it had been yours. Okay, by this time, Raceland probably would have knocked him over the head or something. Or stomped on his foot. I don't know. He was really proud of it. And wouldn't let me touch it, even though I promised I wouldn't get it dirty. Although I guess I should say the staff will be his, because of course it is your staff now. Yeah. Raceland not shutting up Tass, or not shutting him up with a glare. That part's not realistic. Raceland would have shut him up by then. He was still holding the bat guano. He seriously considered using it to blast the Kender. Fortunately for Tass, Sturm and Huma entered the woods at that moment, and Tass forgot about the staff. Not sure. Okay, let's see comments. Okay, seriously, they're going to attack the art. Okay. This image looks great. I don't get it. What's the problem with it? It looks great. Like, sure, I'm not an Age of Mortals fan, but... Okay, this is maybe not the... Okay. Here's the thing. This looks great. The background looks perfect. That's Philip Ehrlich's strong point. The dragon looks great. Sturm could use a bit of work, but... It's just the style, I guess. Raceland does need some work. Destina looks perfect. Nothing to complain about. It's just Raceland looks a little off here. You just need to fix him up a little, and the image would be fine. I don't see the problem. I'd say this entire thread here is just probably people who can't draw complaining about art. Then again, maybe they could. But I just think it's complaining for complaining's sake. Come on. Dragonlance has great art. Always has. Looks okay to me. Nom de plume. Yeah. I'm with him. So, overall... I don't know. I'm not sure I like what I've read. I'd have to read another preview before I make up my mind. As it is, Destina... The thing is, there was too much fast travel in the first book. You didn't have a consistent journey, like the character going on an adventure and like going on an odyssey, so to speak. So in that regard, the first volume was very weak. The second volume could be a lot stronger. I don't think they nail Magius, though. And I don't really want Magius and Huma to appear. We already saw them. We already got them. And what we got was perfect. Why not just finish the graphic novel? Because I think the one from a few years ago is unfinished. Finish that. Maybe if you want to have... I don't know. Maybe a young Huma story, like a young Indiana Jones type thing might be good. Like a young Huma story where you show him coming of age, him and Magius. As it is, we don't really need to have another Huma story. The one we got was perfect. At most, maybe an epic poem about Huma and Magius. That'd be great. Like a 23-book epic poem recounting the events of the Legend of Huma. That'd be perfect. Get a strong poet on it. Bam. You got something great. But the thing about Raceland, Sturm, and Destina is I don't think the era they're being put in... Don't mind the sound of the dog scratching himself. He's under the desk. But anyways, I don't think that this is the right era to send them back in time to. If anything, why not after the Dwarfgate Wars, where it's pretty much a dark age, and you can have a lot of drama there. Or I don't know. I just don't see the point of this. I do want more stories of Sturm, but I don't much like the idea of tampering with Huma and Magius. I'd much rather keep as is and avoid touching it. Richard Knack wrote one of the greatest fantasy novels of all times, I would argue. And now, bear in mind, I consider what Tolkien and Howard wrote as mythology. So, excluding those from the genre, I'd argue The Legend of Huma might very well be the greatest fantasy novel out there, for the most part. At least from the 80s. And to tamper with it, I think... I don't know. Now, I'm not going to be foolish and say it'll ruin my childhood. No. I'll always have the original Legend of Huma. I've got a great copy, and I plan to get a hardcover edition. But I just think that it doesn't seem to me like they quite got Magius. Oops. It's just... I don't know. First book wasn't the strongest. Maybe this would work better as a comic book run. Philip Ehrlich doing the art and Weis and Hickman doing the writing. Maybe that would work better. I don't know. Sorry, but Dragons of Fate? I'm not sure about this one. Heck, if you're going to send them back in time to an ancient era, why not the Kinslayer Wars? Or the Wars, or the Dragon Wars. Like, the ancient one with Sylvanesti's founding. Might work better. And you could explore a whole era that's almost entirely unexplored. But it's Magius here that I'm kind of finding weak. And talking about introducing flaws to Huma, or at least, maybe not introducing flaws, but what was it? That there's a dissonance within them as they're viewing their heroes. I don't much like that. And the trouble is, Huma is greater than what Sturm imagines him to be. We saw in the Legend of Huma, that he is the perfect knight. There's no need to... I don't think there would be a dissonance. I don't know. I'm starting to have a certain dissonance towards what I read. And I don't know. Not sure. Not sure. I have a bad feeling about this one. I've got a bad feeling. Now, I'm not going to say don't buy the book or something. If you like what you read, buy it. Love it. Treasure it. I'm short on cash these days. Hopefully I'll have more cash by then. But I'm going to have to hold off for a little on buying it. So I'm going to have to... wait before I get it. And then I'm going to read it and review it. So... But if another preview comes out, or I find another one and I read it on the channel and I don't like it, I'm not going to get the book. Just going to tell you the truth. Because I don't believe in supporting something you know you're not going to like. and it'd be better to support what you do like. And in this case, that would be the classic Chronicles, which I do so love, especially Winter Night. So hopefully we'll have for you all soon the next Winter Night podcast video, because I absolutely love that volume. I don't think there's too much to complain about with Winter Night. And we're planning after we rush through Winter Night and the Spring Dawning podcasts to actually get to work on Legend of Huma. It's the book I most want to read and I most want to review, because I love Legend of Huma. And I'm currently looking to get the audiobook so that I could review the audiobook, as I really want to do a review of that. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button, as though you were Huma taking down Takesis.